We're live. Holy cannoli, I just about missed that. Tonight, we're going to talk about dealing with difficult people. And, it's funny, when I came up with that idea, it wasn't, it's something I was thinking about, but man, is it kind of, and we definitely won't get political here, but it definitely is kind of going along with the theme of the week. And, but it's something that I think it's important for all of us. But before we get there, don't forget to, that this is WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. And this is the Health, Love, and Life Show. And I'm Arnie Fonseca Jr., or Coach Arnie. And don't forget, there's my email. There's my phone number. You can call me or text me anytime you want. And one thing about me you're going to learn is I answer the phone. And if I don't, I'll get to you as soon as I get a break or a text. One of the things I learned from a very good friend and coach of mine is return those phone calls and those text messages. And it's funny because I do a lot of work with companies. And it is bad out there. People don't answer their phones, and a lot of it's virtual now. It makes it even worse. And you have big companies that don't answer their phones, that don't have their voicemail system is horrendous. Nobody's calling back. Not that you have to, but I'm just saying, if they tell you they are, so it's just a lot of bad human behavior, human skills, people skills. And that's kind of what we're going to lead into here today, in that we can't control that. Problem is, we sure want to, don't we? We want everybody to like us. I don't know how long ago it was, but I've been telling this for a while in workshops, especially, probably at least 15 years, but it's probably been at least 20 years. But I thought, I know that half the people out there aren't going to like me. And, it makes it a lot easier when I'm making phone calls because it's not emotional. It's not emotional. It's just and I've written down some notes on this, but making those phone calls is not an emotional thing. It's just something that I do. So if somebody says something I don't like, I smile, even though I can't see them. And I just go to the next number. Because, and we're going to lean into all this stuff, because the problem with difficult people is that a lot of us try to control it. And it just doesn't work. It actually creates a bigger mess on the other side. So as we go through these stories and antidotes and techniques tonight, here in the next few minutes, just remember that at the end of the day, there's only one person you can control. You. That's it. That's all you can do. I was on a call earlier and we were talking about making those phone calls every day. And I was telling somebody, I said, I've been very consistent in the last 2 weeks. 20. And the guy looked at me and goes, I've been waiting for you to do that. And, but it's that consistency. It's that consistency that makes the difference. And when you're with people, it's not about them, it's about you. So for me, if I make 20 phone calls and 20 people yell at me, at some point I might go, maybe I'm fishing in the wrong pond. I'm not going to blame the fish. I'm going to blame me for choosing the wrong pond. So remember, all this comes down to you. Comes down to you, because one of the things I teach when we talk about relationships is if I want to have a relationship with somebody, it's up to me to accept them unconditionally. It's funny, my wife was in some conversations today, and she's very apolitical. But again, who can keep away from all this stuff? And she made a comment, just as almost like an ignorant comment, but it's because it was just what somebody who's not political would say. And people that she knew from way back were making these weird comments, almost like this whole cancel thing. It's like she was like totally caught off guard. And it was almost like, because people were saying things about not being her friend anymore. And I'm thinking, wow, that's how fast people are judging because of what you say. And that's dangerous, because true friendship is about unconditional acceptance. Unconditional. And that's on your side. See, if I want to be your friend, I have to accept you unconditionally. Because if I'm your friend and I'm constantly trying to change you, you're going to resent me. I promise you, you will. If I'm in a relationship with you that's more than a friendship, and I'm constantly trying to change you, you're going to resent, even if you asked me to. I promise you, in time, you will begin to resent me. Now, if I have a coach, and I say to my coach, and I'm paying my coach, hey, I need to make these changes. Will you keep me accountable? That's on me too. See, and if I start to resent him, then hey, quit. That's my problem. But it really comes down to unconditional acceptance. And when you start putting conditions on people, especially difficult people, you're in for a world of hurt. You're in for a world of hope. So let's look at this. Let's look at this idea, because all of us run into difficult people probably every day. It might be somebody at the grocery store. It might be somebody at the online. Maybe you're dealing with a warranty issue, a bill. It might be a family friend. I mean, I got a million stories. And we can't always run away from those things. Sometimes they put us in a very awkward situation. So what do you do? So you don't make it worse? So let's talk about it. First thing I put on my list is just be calm. And I'll use, and I'm being vulnerable here tonight, kind of like I was last week with my good friend Orist. I generally don't wear a mask. Don't judge me. But I do wear it when I have to, when I work with a client that I made a deal with the daughter. And normally she wouldn't even care, but because of where she lives. And if a organization business has a policy that I have to wear it no matter what, and it was ongoing at the beginning, I get to choose whether I go in there or not, which is fair. It's fair. If I have a policy at my front door that you can't walk in with your boots or your shoes full of mud, and somebody wants to come in my house full of mud, then I won't let them in. That's my policy. That's okay. You don't have to come into my house. So I'm okay with all of that, but I am not okay with changing the rules. And so I've learned to question people about things if I have time. But if not, I just move in very quickly, maintain social distancing. But I've had a couple instances where managers have come up to me and wanted me to wear a mask. And all I did was very carefully remain calm. Because the last thing you want to do is escalate a situation. So I just remain calm. I talk to him for a minute, let him know what I'm doing, and I've never had a problem. Never. I've been asked to leave, but I always was able to finish what I was doing. Okay? And I know they're in a tough situation. I know that. So my first rule was be calm. Don't judge them. They're having to judge me because that's their job. They're being told what to do. So, and I'm not going to put them in a tough situation, but I'm also going to stick to my principles when possible to not wear the mask. So I hope you're not judging me. So be calm. And then number two, that kind of goes along with that, is understand their point of view, their situation. You know, sometimes we got to call it empathy, which is to see the world from the other person's point of view, not to agree with it. I'm not going to agree with their point of view, but I'm in their house. So I'm going to understand it. I'm going to see it from their point of view. And my daughter's always yelling at me, but you're making them uncomfortable. I know that. And that's why I'm not going to escalate. And that's why I'm going to move quickly. I'm not going to sit in there and dilly-dally like I like to do sometimes in the store. I'm going in and coming out. And so far, so good. It's worked well for 8 months. So, but at the same time, I know what they're going through. So if you're in a situation and you're showing empathy, all that means is you're understanding their world, what they're seeing, because they're being told whatever it might be. It doesn't have to be this silly stuff with the mask. It could be something important, like, you know, a relationship you're in, or somebody at work. Somebody at work is upset and says something to you, and you have to kind of take a step back and say, okay, wait a minute. What's going on with them? Are they having trouble in their relationship? Do they have a child that's sick? Are they sick? Is their wife sick? Girlfriend sick? Mom sick? Do we know that? No. Are they having financial problems? No, we don't know any of this stuff. So don't judge them. Understand them. Understand them and love them. Love them too. Understanding and love doesn't mean you agree with them. But see what you're doing here? By not judging them, you're not going to escalate the situation. It's awful hard to fight with somebody who's being nice to you. Right? It happens. It just makes it kind of hard, doesn't it? It makes it very hard when you are nice or they are nice to you to really get into a knockdown, drag out. Even if you're really pissed off. Think about all of us. We've all done this. Don't tell me you haven't, because I've done it. Probably if I brought my wife in here, she'd tell you I've done a lot. But where we, let me get my thoughts right here. Where when you escalate a situation, okay, I don't want to say that. Now I lost my train of thought. But it was all about when you have to see the world from their point of view, okay? But not to agree with it. But if you're being vulnerable, okay, and then they have nothing to hold against you. But it doesn't mean that you're compromising your principles. So let's move on here, and that thought will come back to me here in a minute. So my next rule that I like to, or principle, not principle, but a rule, is maybe if I'm at work especially, or on a team or something, maybe talk to somebody who may know more about what's going on in somebody's life. Maybe you can say, hey, you know what's going on with Joe? Man, he seems really uptight lately. Oh yeah, you didn't know he's, his dog's sick. It's really, he loves his dog, and he doesn't know if he's gonna have to put his dog down. It's like, makes sense. Cool. Now, it doesn't mean you jump right in and talk about his dog, but it means maybe be a little more loving, be a little more accepting. Doesn't mean you compromise your principles, but it just means to be a little more understanding, empathetic to old Joe's situation. That's all it means. So sometimes if we can talk to some other people in our environment, in our family, with our friends, if we have groups of friends and somebody's struggling, or they're angry with you for whatever reason, you're going, gosh, did I do something nutty here? I missed it. I mean, we've all been there, right? We've all been in a situation where the person is on us and we're going, did I do something here? And it's really a struggle. I mean, and sometimes we jump the gun to be, and that'll come up here in a minute. Let me see where I put that one. Yeah, we can talk about it now. We become defensive. I mean, I did it yesterday. My wife came to me and was talking to me about putting the towel in a certain spot in the bathroom, floor towel or mat. And I jumped. And I thought, no, I've done that. And have I always? No, I've made a couple mistakes, but I felt I was being judged. And she went, whoa. And so I assumed judgment. And that's not what it was. That's not what it was. So sometimes we just need to, rule one, be calm, understand, and don't become defensive. If you become defensive, then the other person, you put them on edge. And they're already mad. So what are you doing? You're making it worse. So don't do that. Okay, and that's going to come down, and I'm going to go to this point, and then we're going to come back to it. Manage your emotions. And this is probably the number one rule. With all of this, anytime you're dealing with a difficult person, whether it be a child, an adult, a work partner, a life partner, anybody, your job is to manage your emotions. Your job is not to control the other person. Your job is not to manage the other person. Your job is to manage yourself and lead yourself. And by doing that, you may lead the other person. But you're not going to manage them. It won't work. Managing people doesn't work. But managing yourself does. So managing your emotions so you don't get wound up because they said something that made you mad. Woo! So what good does it do to get mad? What good did it do to me yesterday to get mad? Did nothing. I'm the one who had to apologize. Okay? So don't be defensive. And we're going to use this a lot here in the next few minutes. But you've got to manage your emotions. That is so critical. As a parent and now a grandparent, when you're dealing with children, and I have a client, I love him to death. I mean, I just love him to death. But he has a stepdaughter that they adopted many years ago. And every time I go over there, because she needs to stay home now and help him because he's had an injury. And it's uncomfortable when I watch how they interact with each other. There's a lot of judgment. And I, as a parent, grandparent, and a teacher of human behavior skills, it's almost like everything is being done wrong now. And I'm trying not to judge him, but here I am judging him, but I love him to death. I love them both. But you have to want to learn. Every time I've given him some advice, he takes it, but he's bound and determined to do it his way. And when children are at that age, when they're 15, 16, 17, it's almost too late. And I'm going to say 80% of the time it is too late, because they've already determined their personalities and their oops, sorry about that. I knocked over my Wi-Fi. And so now you want to hope they've surrounded themselves with good people, good friends, teachers, coaches, church folks, whatever. That's what you want to hope for, because they're not going to listen to you as much. Just a fact. And that's why raising children is so hard, especially in today's world. It's very difficult. And because the last thing you want to be doing as an adult is parenting children that are 20, 30, 40 years old. I see it all the time. And I know that's what's going to be happening in his life, because if she even comes around when she's ready to leave, would be, I don't even see that happening. I don't, because I don't see any love there. And that makes it hard. So manage your emotions. Manage your emotions. Huge right there. Let's take a minute now and just take a little break here, and we'll be right back with the Health, Love, and Life show. And this is Coach Arnie. All right, we are back. So now let's look at a few more points here as we get rolling here. Another good strategy is you've also got to talk about your point of view as well. So once you've talked to other people, once you start to understand what they're going through, your point of view also has to be brought into the mix as well. Because if you don't feel like you're being listened to, that relationship won't last very long anyways. So at some point you have to bring your point of view into the conversation. And if the other person refuses, I call that level 2 and level 3 relationship, meaning that when there are conditions put on you, but you're not putting any conditions on the other person until they come up to balance, there will be a struggle there. And at some point, the person that's unconditionally loving the other person will get tired and worn out and will leave the relationship, whether it's at work, especially today with a lot of millennials. If they feel disrespected or unloved or whatever it might be at work, they'll just leave. They won't show up. It's pretty simple, and it's not about money. It's about respect and love and making them feel good. And that's not always the best thing. It's like making those phone calls we talked about earlier. If you get up every day and you go, I feel really good, I'm going to make my phone calls today. But what if the next day you go, I'm not feeling too hot today. Maybe I won't make my calls today. See where that goes? You don't want to do stuff that you need to do based on emotion. You want to do it based on what you need to get done. Rapport. Trying to get along. That's huge. It's important. I mean, look, one of the things I talk about with rapport is and I made a note here. Yeah, it'll come up next. It's all part of charisma. A person that's charismatic attracts people, and they can take over a room. But is charisma a skill, or is it something that you're born with? I believe it's a skill. I believe you can work on it. I want you to think about something here. I wrote this next. If you went into a meeting and you looked around the room and there might be 10, 15 people in that room, and you went up to everybody during that hour or so that you were there maybe, and you treated everybody with a 10, like they had a 10 written on there, from 1 to 10, there are 10. You've heard that. And you treated everybody as a 10 in that room. What do you think would happen at the end of that meeting? Who are they going to talk about? We're going to talk about you. And you didn't go there to get anything. All you did was, I'm going to go in here and treat everybody phenomenal. I'm going to treat them like they're 10s. You want to build charisma? Next time you walk into a meeting, they're going to go, hey, there's Arnie. There's Jim. There's Mary. I love that guy, man. He is so cool. They may not even know what you do, but they think you're awesome. Why? Because you treated them great. It works. You want charisma? Practice it. Practice loving people. That's it. Practice loving people, and you'll have charisma. Not to get, since we didn't go political, we touched the edges, and I'll touch the edges of religion here. Probably the most charismatic person in the world was Jesus Christ, and all he did with love was just love people. Okay, so I mean, it is something that if you choose to do it, practice it. Now it comes easier to some than others because of people and your personality. I understand that 100%. The next thing on my list was action. What are you willing to do to move the situation along? Are you willing to treat them like a 10? Are you willing to accept them unconditionally? Are you willing to engage them and be vulnerable with them? I don't know. That's your deal. And when you look at each situation like that, then you can decide, is this something that I want to do? Because if you're not willing to do those things, if you're not willing to work with somebody unconditionally, if you're not willing to do things that will build rapport, empathy, all those things, then it might be best just to leave that situation. It's not going to work. Now, if it's a job and you're not willing to get along, well, maybe get transferred to another division or quit. That's on you. So what kind of action are you willing to take to move this thing along, to build that relationship or to end that relationship? I mean, let's be honest. That's what action's about. Sometimes to save the peace, you've heard this, ignore it. Somebody's having a bad day. Normally they're having a great day. Ignore it. If we take everything personally, are we going to be in trouble? Ignore it. Let it go. You'll know when you need to respond to it. But most of the time, you're not. Somebody is just having a bad day. Ignore it. It's one of the best things you could do. Save your emotions. You're going to need them. Save your emotions. You're going to. We've touched on this next one a few times tonight. Don't judge. This is probably my pet peeve today in our society, our current society. This culture, cancel culture, I guess they call it. Meaning that if you say something that nobody accepts, they're not going to be your friend anymore. Kind of like I talked about earlier about my wife and her social media posting, and friends not wanting to be your friends anymore. How would you like to live in that kind of a situation? I mean, I'm too old to be dealing with that. That's high school. Well, I don't like you because you said so-and-so was this. And I'm like, oh, boy. No. We're human beings. We have a brain. And it's different than everybody. We're all different. See these things here? These are called fingerprints. We all have a different fingerprint. So we all have different thoughts. Now, I'm certainly not a fan of anger and judgment and all these other things. So if you're the one doing that, shame on you. But we all have opinions. And we need to be allowed to express our opinions because that's what makes us unique. But if we're constantly being judged, which I see in young people, we see young people that are so vibrant and so energized when they're very young, before high school. I mean, they're just full of energy and curiosity and love. And then something happens between junior high and their senior year in high school, where everything they say is being judged by their peers, their parents, everybody. So by the time they're junior and senior in high school, they don't say anything. And that's a very sad situation because they've been judged and they don't want to deal with it. They don't want to deal with it. So save that. To me, judgment is poison. It's just poison, guys. It doesn't do any good. And it wears you out too. I mean, believe me, I have to fight back this stuff all the time. Because, and I tell myself, it's not worth your emotions to allow somebody who tried to hurt you to continue to torment you mentally. Now, it's different, obviously, if they continue to try to do it physically, because, I don't want anybody to be a doormat for anybody. But you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. This is a tough one, but it's kind of easy. Basic, easy. And, we hear it all the time. Listen, when I was studying NLP with Bandler, and one of the main things he did to really get people out of really awkward negotiating, suicide jumpers, hostage, all this stuff, was listening. Most of the time, these folks just wanted somebody to listen to. That's it. I mean, that was the main theme of the book. Most of these individuals were just looking for somebody to talk to that would listen to them. And here it is, and would understand them. Now, did I say agree with them? No, not at all. Because we're all looking for this. We're all looking for somebody that will just listen to us and understand us. We're not all looking for somebody to tell us what to do. When we're ready, we'll probably ask. But in reality, we're all looking for somebody that'll understand us. And most difficult people, that's what they're looking for more than anything else. They just want someone to listen to them. So you got to become really good at listening. If you want to get along with difficult people, you've got to become a great listener. Being a great listener allows you to, here we come, we're going to circle back, to manage your emotions. Because if you're listening, you're not getting all wound up with what you're going to say next. You're listening. You're an idiot, Arnie. I can't stand you. You're the worst thing that's happened to this department. I can't believe they hired you. Where'd you learn that stuff? And you're like going, okay. Mm-hmm. And finally, when they're all done, you go, I get it. I'm sorry. We'll get to that in a minute. But next thing I wrote down was, don't try to get your own way. You know, that's politics. Don't try to get your own way. The key is somehow figure out how it can be a win-win situation. And no, I don't want you compromising your values at all. That's why it takes time to work this stuff out. That's why we listen. We learn. But at the same time, if all you're worried about is getting your own way, at some point it's going to blow up. With you, if somebody's trying to get their way with you, so it's going to work the same way with the other person. And you know how you would respond, but you don't know how they're going to respond. So quit trying to get your own way. And I'm going to work in a little term I like to call arm wrestling. Because you don't want to be in a situation either where you're just trying to arm wrestle somebody into it. And then they pull back, and then you pull forward. That's like sales. The idea is not to sell somebody something. The idea is to find somebody who wants to buy what you have. So now you're a hunter. Now you're hunting for people that want what you have, instead of trying to make somebody buy your shit. Total different mindset, isn't it? You're hunting. Oh, that one doesn't want it. Maybe this one does. Oh, that one doesn't want it. Maybe this one does. Instead of, oh, that dirtbag didn't want my stuff. Oh, that dirtbag didn't want my. What's wrong with these people? Don't they know how great I am? So arm wrestling can be fatiguing, and it could definitely not be a great technique to use to build relationships with people. I just mentioned saying you're sorry. That's a huge one when you're in the situation where you're admitting to doing crazy stuff. You know, it's like me. I mean, I don't know how many times. I don't want you to overdo sorry. I want you to say you're sorry when there's something to be sorry about. Some people, I have a client, I love him to death. We've had to break him the habit of saying I'm sorry, because he was saying it for everything. I mean, even if it was the other person's situation. I go, no, don't say that, because you're going to annoy people. But if you do something to somebody and you say something that's inappropriate, say I'm sorry. Can you forgive me? And most of the time people do, and most people will forgive you as well. If they don't, so what? You already said it. Doesn't matter. So saying you're sorry is powerful. It brings you down. And that's what we want to do. Hang on one second. I need to close this door. I'm watching my daughter's dog. And normally I can leave my door ajar, and forgot he was in the house. So he pulled in and I didn't want to hear the noise from out there. So, yeah. So saying you're sorry. Setting limits. That's right. You have to have limits. How far are you going to go with this thing? Kind of in a relationship that's a Remember, one that's unconditional and conditional. Eventually you want the conditional person to be unconditional. Eventually. But if it doesn't happen, so if you're at work with somebody and it's week in, week out, week in, month out, at some point, both of you are going to be worn out. At some point, you're going to have to do something. So what's your limit? How far are you going to take this thing? At some point, if you're the manager or the other person's, or you have a manager and you say, hey, look, this is just not working out here. Is there any way I can move to this team, this division, and take the action, which we talked about earlier? Because beating a dead horse is just beating a dead horse. So you got to have limits. How about taking care of yourself? See, all this stress from dealing with people that are angry and people that are tough to deal with can really be stressful. And so you've got to have techniques, strategies that you are using to take care of yourself. Are you exercising, taking a walk, eating better, getting proper rest? All these things are important. And if you're not doing it, it just makes it harder. It just absolutely makes it harder. So taking care of that stress is huge. It's huge. Trust your gut. What does that mean? Well, if the situation doesn't feel right in your gut, like one of the things I always tell people is don't be, because I'm touchy-feely. And when you're in a situation with somebody that's angry and not exactly in the make a friend mode, the last thing you want to go up to them is grab them and hug them and no. Keep your distance. But you got to trust your gut. You got to trust your gut, Sometimes a smile. Sometimes a handshake, fist bump. Sometimes whatever your gut's telling you, sometimes your gut's going to tell you to walk away. Not for good, but just in that situation. You're not ready for that. And you got to listen to your gut. I want to finish with 3 things that I think are very important when you're dealing with a difficult person. These are simple, quick strategies that you can use anytime. The first one is mirroring. So a lot of negotiators will use this, and I'm talking about big time, FBI, that kind of stuff. And that means if I say something, they kind of repeat it back to me. So Arnie, you said that you don't like the situation you're in there and you feel you're being disrespected. Am I hearing that right? So you're being... You feel that you're being disrespected by your colleagues. Is that right, Arnie? Yeah. So mirror back what this person's saying to you. It will help them to feel that you're listening to them. It will help you allow them to de-escalate the emotion of the conversation. Because all you're doing is repeating back their words and listening. And that's a big thing. Now, the second little strategy is pace. If you're talking in the same pace that they are, so if they're going really fast and you're talking really slow, you may want to speed it up a little bit to kind of match their pace. Da, 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 da. Or if they're going slow, well, Arnie, I don't really like, so what is that you don't really like. So matching pace, matching tone. See, if I get all excited and I'm way up here and somebody's way down here, you may want to go up there with them unless they come back down, and you can match tone. So you have pace and tone. Those 2 things allow you to start to bridge that gap, and you begin to match the other person. And when you start to do that, it really works on this right here, the brain, and starts to create a relationship. And you're not arguing. You're agreeing because you're just telling them what they just told you. You're understanding. You're listening. So, guys, there's quite a bit of strategies there, and play around with them. The most important thing to remember here as we end this thing, please manage your emotions. Whatever goes on in your life, you just take a deep breath and say, okay, slow it down. Or whatever you need to do. But you need to manage your emotions, especially when you're dealing with kids. Okay? Because if you allow them to take you into a different level, then they control the situation. By you slowing it down, you begin to control the situation. Super important. All right, guys, it's been Coach Arnie with the Health, Love, and Life Show. I appreciate you guys. And let's see you next week.